Wait a minute, did you just play a supporter on turn 1?
Yeah, so?
That's against the rules, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Just...
Supporters on turn 1, forget about it, it's done. A rule change has now come, going second and you've won. Yeah, Duncan is back in town, one shot at the active and they're down. Setting up with nothing around, no item search and nothing is found. Ha, don't know what to do up next, my Lily engine is screwed like that. I guess we have to take new steps and stop playing evolutions. Oh crap, what do you guys think about the news? Who else is a little confused? That Energy X will be abused, going second is now something we'll choose. Yeah, episode 233, Sword and Shield Rule Change 2020. The community goes crazy. What's up YouTube, it's TCG here and welcome back to another episode on my channel. In this episode we're going to be talking about the new rule change that is going to be taking place in 2020 when the Sun and Moon, actually not Sun and Moon, the Sword and Shield era will drop in the trading card game. This is a huge rule change and I'm actually going to talk about it in this video and talk about which cards are actually going to be better off with this rule change and which cards actually become really unplayable or very worse to say the least. Also, at any given point, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to demolish the like button or subscribe if you haven't already. And also click that little notification bell so you get notified immediately when a new video hits the channel. So, as you can see here, the rule change 2020, Sword and Shield. We always know that there's gonna be like new things coming when a new era hits. We of course have X, Y, going into Sun and Moon and etc. Even Black and White and her Gold and Silver. There's also always like a new block there where they implement new things. For instance, in the Sun and Moon era, they implemented GX Pokemon. Now they're gonna adapt like V cards, and also there's gonna be a rule change taking place. Rule changes don't take place every block of cards. It has been a while, and the rule change here is, look at this. The rule change, Sword and Shield, when you go first, you can't use supporter cards. This is crazy. Why is this crazy? Well, of course, we had Welder meta before everything, and everything used like Welder, your turn, and then afterwards they Welder again, and bam, out of nowhere, on the second turn, the opponent already had like 6 energies attached. Now, this is not possible anymore. When you go first, you can't use supporter cards. This is also not beneficial for setup decks, so like evolution decks need to get their basics out, want to use a supporter first turn. That is not possible anymore. Think about your first turn Lily for 8. Well, that is just history. If you could still use that, a Lily for like 8 if you go second. But if you go first, it's definitely a dead card, to say the least, because drawing until you have 6 in the opening turn, that was not good, but you cannot use it regardless. So in the rest of the game, if you go first, your Lily will be only working to draw cards until you have 6, which is very worse in my opinion. There's also a new Professor Magnolia, which lets you discard your hand, draw 7 cards, but still, you cannot use supporters on your very first turn. What does this mean in general? Well, this was actually a rule that actually was adapted like 2004 up until 2020. Actually, no, 2010. That was like an era of the period in the TCG where you could not play supporters on your first turn, I believe. But back then you could attack on the first turn. So I do remember like playing ZPST, what was it again? Zekrom, Pachirisu, Shaman combos, and attacking on the first turn. That was possible in those era of days. But now you cannot attack on your first turn and you cannot use supporters. How crazy is that? What this means for the future, let's say the player is going first. You play the coin flip. Typically coin flips are like, oh yeah, I want to go first. I want to have my setup, use your Lily for 8 and get everything rolling. Well, scratch that. Nowadays, you'd rather want to be going second because on the first turn, you cannot attack. And you can also not use supporters. What does this mean in general? You cannot set up. You have to get your items as early as possible. You need to maybe play a bunch of Jirachis and maybe some ball engines, but we don't have Nazball. We don't have Ultra Ball. So if you're going first, you're actually going to be breaking a lot, I guess. There's a lot of things going on here. So the community is going wild, to say the least. Every day, everybody's like losing their mind and stuff. So the conclusion is, certain cards become better because there's a lot of cards stating like you can only use this if you go second. So these cards become incredibly better because going second is better than ever before. Donking is back, meaning that if the opponent only has 1 Pokemon in the active position and they cannot get out a second one because we don't have Nazball, we don't have Ultra Ball, and they cannot use supporters, etc. You can just donk. Even though they have a tag team in the active, there is gonna be like donking decks out there. More on that later, but this is just insane. The second player also has the advantage. They can use supporters, they can attack, they always have the first damage output, and they have the supporter that they can use. So they have an extremely good advantage when playing the game. Evolution decks get worse, to say the least. Let's say you go first and you're an evolution deck and you sit there with your Inca in the active. Well, you just have to hope you get something from your opening hand, maybe some mysterious treasure, but if you don't get them, too bad, you're gonna get donked. 60 HP, easy. A lot of these decks just use Welder, boom, you're out of here. Turbo Strike with a Mewtwo or whatever. Yeah, that's gonna be very hard. Evolution decks are getting it worse, even though like we already in a heavy, big, basic meta. Evolution decks, we definitely need some cards like Level Ball, Dive Ball, etc. Some item search ball engines, otherwise things will go crazy. So, weakened cards. That is what you're here for, to see what cards are weakened. First turn Lily. Lily is still great, don't get me wrong, but let's say you play 4 copies of Lily and you go first. Well, you cannot play your Lily, and that means the rest of the game your Lilies only draw cards until you have 6, which is most of the times gonna be worse than just a regular How, to say the least, which is crazy. Just drawing 3 cards is bad. Well, Lily most of the times will get you an average of 3 cards. So Lily is weakened. If you go second, Lily is still great, but you cannot rely on that. If you're playing a tournament, half of the games you'll be going first, because everybody's gonna say, I'm going second. That means half of the games your Lily is gonna become very worse, and you cannot get your setup. Next is Steven's Resolve. You know, of course, those stall decks or like those checkmate decks are relying on Steven's Resolve the very first turn to get everything else, and get Steven's Resolve for 2 other cards, and then they loop Steven's Resolve again and again. Well, on the first turn they cannot use it. That means like stall decks sometimes will get donked as well. You always see how it happens. No Nazball, no everything. They use Steven's Resolve, get the Pokemon they want, and everything in the hand, and then out of nowhere you can just say, well, you're just way too slow, man, because if you go first, you cannot use Steven's Resolve. That means I go second, I just donk you. That's how it sometimes will go. Professor Elm's Lecture, one of those setup decks for evolution decks. Think about first turn Elm getting yourself 3 Pidgeys. Well, if you're playing the Pidgeotto control deck and you go first, well, you cannot rely on Elm's Lecture. That means you're gonna get donked. So a lot of these cards are just very good if you can use them on the first turn, but if you cannot use a supporter on the first turn, they're garbage. Same goes for Fan Club, although Fan Club could still be used in the mid game to just get, of course, also a Dedenne Jack. Same goes for Professor Elm's Lecture. If you go second, Elm's is still good. Welder, here is the controversial card that everybody's just freaking out about. That Welder is just too dominant that almost half of the decks rely on Welder. Well, the first turn you cannot use Welder anymore. So in a mirror match, if you go first, you cannot have that first turn advantage of a Welder. The bad thing is that you go first, you have attachment of the turn, and there's nothing you can do, no Welder, whatever, and the opponent will then simply Welder ahead of you. So in theory, it can still work out, because if you have the first turn attachment on, let's say, a Mewtwo GX, the turn after that you could have like a Welder attach, and you can still get out like a Flare Strike, I believe, from the Charizard GX, the family one, 300 damage. So yeah, it's a little bit more balanced, but I'm not too sure about it. So Green's Exploration, also one of these decks just use Green's Exploration for a Green's Exploration and another card. Well, on the first turn, well, that is just not happening anymore. Sometimes those decks will just also brick, because let's face it, Green's Reshizard. How many times you use Green's Exploration on your first turn to get yourself a Fiery Flint and a Welder? Well, say goodbye to that, because you just have to hope you have Welder in your hand, otherwise you have to use a green and you're 1 turn behind. And let me just talk about cards that use the attack fast rate. Yeah, if you go first, you can attack on your first turn. This still happens, but still, if you go first, you cannot use a supporter, so it's gonna be very hard to get all the puzzle pieces for those combos with fast rate. So, next up, the stronger cards. Going second, Wait and See Hammer. The thing that the opponent can do is attach up the turn, and that's that. They don't have Welder, they don't have the energy acceleration. They could use Azurel, the baby one, to flip a coin if has they get an additional energy, but still, with most games, you will just see Wait and See Hammer, and bam, out of nowhere, the opponent going first will have 0 energies, and they basically did nothing. Nothing at all. Next is Jasmine. If you go second, you can use this and get 5 metal Pokemon immediately from, search a deck for a metal Pokemon, and if you go second, search a deck for 5 metal Pokemon. That's crazy. Dunsparce might finally see some play from Celestial Storm. I just thought that this card was very good in the beginning. Search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your deck. If you put any Pokemon, you can swap around. So maybe people will rely on Dunsparce, since going second is always better. Maybe in setup decks, play for Dunsparce and hopefully you go second. If not, you're gonna be in a huge amount of trouble. I don't know how evolution decks works. If you go first, then you just get such a disadvantage. Shinx is also a funny one, the one from Ultra Prism. You can, if you go second, you can evolve immediately. That means you can get your Luxio out and start using Disconnect on your very first turn. That means item lock. First of all, the opponent cannot use any supporters on their first turn, and if you go second, you can put them in an item lock immediately. So maybe that card will see some play. Maybe with Electro Power you can get some decent damage output and stuff, and maybe with Electro Rechargers can get them back in the deck. Yeah, who knows. Next is Sneasel, Sneaky Smash. If you go second, you can get rid of an energy. So that means if you use, it's the same thing like Wait and See Hammer, but then as an attack. We have Cupchew with the secondary Chills. An interesting card here. You can only use this attack if you go second, and then the opponent active Pokemon is immediately paralyzed. 4 colorless energy. Might be fun that people try this out. Azelf is also a funny one. Psychic Abduction. You can use this attack only if you go second, and choose one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Your opponents have to shuffle that and all cards attached to it into the deck. So let's say you're facing off against a Malamar deck and they only get 1 NK, and you go second, and out of nowhere, boom, you use Psychic Abduction. No Malamars around. Better to just knock them out, but still, those kind of attacks. Quick Hunt from the Sableye here, also interesting from Lost Thunder. And then Gengar or Mimikyu, this is a funny one. Let's say you go second. The opponent is not able to play any supporters, they have their Pokemon out. Well, next up you use Horror House, and your opponent can play any cards from their hand. That means first turn they can't play any supporters, and the second turn they cannot play any cards. That means dunking potential with Gengar Mimikyu is there. Next is some Pokemon. We have, of course, the Alola Meow, Spoil the Fun. If you put 1 copy of that in your deck and you are able to get it out, and you're up against an evolution-based deck, you can just dunk them. Spoil the Fun. If you go second, you dish out 70 for 0 energies. Crazy. Volcanion, Flare Starter, we got familiar with this card. Every Volcanion-based deck will try and go second. Mesprit, easy enough to get 3 basic Pokemon immediately from the deck on your bench. Very great in those Inkay-based decks. We have Latias Prism Star, which could become stronger in the long run, because typically you wanted to go first to go faster. Now you can go second and be ahead in the game by using Dreamy Mist and 30 damage and attach a basic energy to each one of your basic benched Dragon types. Could be fun. Maybe with those Zekrom and Reshiram Tag Team GX. We also have Umbreon and Darkrai being able to just trainer lock the opponent for colorless energy. So let's say they go first, no access to supporters. You go second, bam, Dark Moon, and out of nowhere they're just breaking. We also have Rowlet and Alolan Exeggutor GX. What was a little bit slow, and those Welder-based decks, but Welder has slowed down if you are able to go second. And not only that, you can just use Super Growth at their full potential, because you are having early access to supporters, and also you have, of course, for 0 energies you can evolve a basic grass type all the way to its stage 2 evolution. Dedenne GX and Jirachi, for that instance, will become crazy expensive, because those are the cards you want to get if you want to be making a deck with the Sword and Shield kind of rule change, because these will still get you cards. Dedenne, bam, I don't give a crap if you're playing, if you're going first, I don't have access to supporters, well, no problem, you just use Cherish Ball, Heavy Count, and use Dedenne. That way you still have access to a lot of the cards on the first turn of the game and get your setup. The Jirachi also works like that if you get some ball engines. So let's say Nazball gets reprinted, Level Ball or whatever. You can use Stellar Wish, get one of those ball engines, and get your setup eventually if you go first. Because you can not play supporters, only items, stadiums, and Pokemon down. So energies as well. Then we also have this incredible Cleffa here. Once during your turn, you may flip a coin if heads, shuffle your hand to your deck and draw 6 cards. So basically, flip a coin if heads, you can use a Cynthia. So even if we don't have access to first turn Cynthia, we can still get ourselves a Cleffa on the first turn and use that. And if it's heads, you still have a Cynthia. You cannot play the cards down because your turn immediately ends, but still you have some shuffle support if you have a bad start. So maybe if you say like, I have a terrible start, I definitely need to shuffle my hand, you have Dedenne, Cleffa, Jirachi, etc. So, Donk combos. As mentioned, donking is back in the format, and it's no easy task, but still, we have a lot of Dedenne, we have Jirachi, switching cards, we can still make it work. What do you need? You need a Mewtwo, you need to attach for the turn if you go second. So let's say you go second, and you have a Mewtwo base deck. Mewtwo, attach of the turn, and then you use a Welder onto it, so you already have 3 energies. Then you're trying to get, of course, some lightning energies in the discard pile, so you have to play a mix between fire and lightning energies. Maybe Viridian Force could also work in that instance. Then you just put a lightning energy in the discard pile, get Tapu Koko Prism Star, get, of course, the energy out of there. Maybe Energy Switch could help out, or you can just have, of course, your Mewtwo on the bench build up and then switch around with that. Then let's say you have the Tapu Koko Dance of the Ancients, you have a Welder, 2 energies, and an attachment of the turn. That means you have 4 energies. There we go. Flare Blitz with the Charizard GX, which is in the discard pile, and out of nowhere, 300 on the first turn. Yeah, not even tag teams will survive that. Let's say the opponent has a lone tag team, let's say God of War or whatever, and they start first, but they cannot use Gloreen's Exploration, they cannot use the coach trainer, and they just attach and pass. And then you see this combo, boom, you win. Crazy to think about. If they cannot get out any basic, it's gonna be terrible for the opponent. What else? As mentioned, if you're a setup deck and you're relying on 60 HP basics, think about Ditto. Yeah, that only has 40 HP, but still, we have Inkay, Ditto, what else? Jirachi even, so 70 on the first turn, boom, it's over. Because if you go second, you can use it for 0 energy. So that's it for this little mini episode talking about the rule change. Let me know in the comment section what you think personally about this rule change. Are you a fan of it? Did you play in the Diamond and Pearl era where this was a thing, where you could not play any supporters? You could attack on those days, but now you cannot attack and not play supporters. What is Pokemon gonna do with that? Are we gonna get stronger item cards? Who knows? Let me know your opinions and thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to demolish the like button and subscribe for more Pokemon TCG content on a weekly basis. And I will see you guys sooner or later. I'm going to the Colon regional, so if you're going to there, might see you up, of course, in Germany. If not, you're also gonna see me on the channel as well. So anyhow, have a fantastic rest of your day. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.